Welcome back to another video of chapter 1. This is going to be the last video for chapter 1. And in this video, we are discussing behavioral and social cognitive theories. The first type of theory that we're going to talk about is behaviorism. And behaviorism is studying what you directly observe, and what you directly observe has to be able to be measured. So for example, we see in these pictures passive, assertive, and aggressive. Let's focus on aggressive for a minute. We cannot directly observe and measure aggressive or aggression, but there are some behaviors that are correlated with aggression. For example, raising your voice would be an example of showing aggression. That is something that you can hear, something you can observe, and something that you can measure. So if you wanted to measure aggression, what you can do is measure the amount of times that someone raises their voice. And that would be an example of behaviorism, because you would be able to directly measure. You could tally the amount of times that someone raises their voice, and you can directly observe or hear that. You have those senses to be able to understand when someone raises their voice. The next type of theory that we're going to discuss is from Albert Bandura. And Albert Bandura came up with the social cognitive theory. In his theory, he believed that there are three factors that are key in development. The first is behavior. The second is the environment. And the third is the person or cognition. I want you all to take a look at these arrows. Want you to see that they do not go in one direction, but they go in both directions, which means that behavior plays a role on the environment, but the environment also plays a role on behavior, for example. Another example is that environment plays or influences cognition, but cognition also influences the environment. The arrows illustrate that behavior, cognition, and the environment, they reciprocally influence each other. Meaning that behavior will influence environment as well as the environment influence the behavior. The influence of behavior, cognition, and the environment are not unidirectional. Meaning that behavior does not just influence the environment. But again, as I've been saying, environment also influences the behavior. You can do that for behavior, environment, behavior, cognition, and cognition and environment. Remember that in social cognitive theory, that these three key factors in development are bidirectional. Bidirectional. And lastly, we have Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory. And this theory really focused on the types of environmental systems that a child lives in and is influenced by. So, for example, let's start here in the middle and let's talk about the individual. So that individual, you can talk about that person's sex, age, health, etc. You can talk about this individual may be a male or a female, and let's say they're 4 years old. Now let's go into that individual's microsystem. When we talk about the microsystem, that is the setting in which the individual lives or has interactions with. So for example, the microsystem would be a family, because the family is where the individual lives or resides. Another type of microsystem would be the school. They don't necessarily live at the school, but it seems like during COVID, the students do live at school, but school isn't a school building because that individual actually goes into that school and goes into that environment for a period of time. Let's jump to mesosystem. And when we talk about the mesosystem, we're talking about the relationship between the different microsystems. So let's look at the relationship between family and school, for example. A lot of schools have family school partnerships. And that is where the school and the families come together to help make the school a better place. And the school also gives the families information in order to help the parents or the caregivers to provide the best support that they can for the child's development. So that family and school partnership is an example of the mesosystem. Just looking at the relationships between microsystems. Next, we're going to go to the exosystem. So the exosystem, it links the social setting and the immediate context. So for example, the child is not in the exosystem. For example, they are not at their parents' job. Okay, they're not at their parents' job, but the amount of hours that their parent works at the job is going to directly influence the amount of time that that caregiver is at home. So the exosystem would be an external factor where the child does not go into that system, into that environment, but it directly influences their immediate context or their microsystem. Next, let's look at the macro system. And the macro system, we're thinking about culture. Remember, culture are just like the beliefs of a certain group. And you can have a culture of the continent you're on, the country that you live in. You can have certain beliefs because you are a certain religion or not a certain religion, race, ethnicity. All of those types of cultures are a part of the macro system. And lastly, we have the chronosystem. And the chronosystem is just environmental events and transitions over the life course. So for example, the chronosystem that we are all currently living in would be the pandemic era. Since that is a huge transition of our life, and it's a huge part of our life, and everyone around the world is going through this at the same time. Also, the years that we are currently in, 2020, 2021, the chrono means time. So the time that we are living in impacts this individual. Okay, you all, that's all that I have for you for chapter 1. I will see you all on chapter 2, where we start to really dive into development in the womb. Bye-bye.